doing out there? Welcome to a Word Home Media presentation of Major League A-Holes. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes. This was kind of going to be just a small, short episode. I was going to call it just number 155.5, kind of piggybacking on our recording from last week because it has a lot of the same things. But unfortunately, Sammy fucking Sosa had to butt in with his enormous head and throw this whole podcast into a tizzy as he made a fake, phony apology to all Cubs fans and somehow phony Tom Ricketts accepted, and now everything's great. And Sammy's going to be at CubsCon in February or whenever the fuck that is. So we'll talk about that. But really, why I wanted to do this podcast was to talk about something we talked about potentially happening: the Cubs trading for Kyle Tucker, and it happened. Potentially the greatest trade in at least Jed Hoyer's history.
I was going to say, let's not get too crazy.
Followed immediately by the worst trade in Jed Hoyer's history.
I agree.
So we'll I think I might grade those or something and then come down with a final grade for Jed Hoyer's performance. But it's so confusing and ridiculous what's going on with the Cubs, but encouraging and discouraging at the same time. The dichotomy that is the Cubs, the duality. You've got a little bit of Sox news there. I saw they changed the name of the ballpark again. I think you and I can go down our list of favorite ballpark names for the Sox over there, nicknames and real names. You've got other news. You want what? SoxFest coming up?
Yeah.
I think with Festivus just around the corner, maybe it's SoxFestivus that we'll be celebrating. Potentially the airing of grievances before SoxFest. So
I think it's fair that I can air the grievances of all Sox fans when we do a quick little segment about this upcoming
I like it.
disaster. I mean, event.
And it's going to be live. So.
Yeah, weird, isn't it always? Yeah. But whatever.
We'll see. It's back though. So, but before we get there, we might as well jump into the big fucking news. Sammy Sosa releases a statement out of the blue. I'm not sure why this was destined for December 19th, 2024, why this is happening. I mean, we made him asshole of the week back in March when he returned to Chicago for the first time in 17 years and was blindsided when he said he was willing to admit that he'd made mistakes and then was unwilling to talk about those mistakes to local media. Now, apparently, he's added slightly to that stance and said he's made mistakes and he wants to apologize. So I don't know. Everyone knows my thoughts. Anyone that's paid attention to this podcast or our blog for all these years knows my thoughts about Sammy Sosa. I think you've got similar thoughts.
Yeah.
Should we just go through the bogus statement, like maybe line by line? It's a few lines long, but I think it's kind of humorous. Maybe
get
that over there.
We haven't had a Nike uniform release in a while, so this will be like running through one of those.
Yeah, good call. About as meaningful, yes.
Yes, exactly, but not quite as confusing. Okay, so we're going to start with Sammy's statement because then after Sammy, of course, Tom Ricketts had a statement ready to go. It's almost as if there was collusion over what was going to happen.
Choreographed.
But here we go. A statement from Sammy Sosa. I left it all on the field for the Cubs and Cubs fans because I wanted to win and make the fans happy.
Yay, right. Sammy.
Yeah. I love to see the
Sounds like a great way to start an apology.
Yeah. Look how awesome I am.
I am great.
I am great. Yeah, I left it all on the field. I even left the clubhouse early. No, it doesn't say that. I love to see the fans at Wrigley in the right field bleachers every home game. Yippee.
I was sitting in those right field bleachers many times. I was not as scornful then as events have played out over time. I'm much angrier at Sammy, of course, but sorry, go ahead.
No, you don't. I feel like we should comment, you or I, on each of these sentences. I understand why some players in my era don't always get the recognition that our stats deserve.
So again, he understands, and yet he's like, fuck you, give us our recognition. Like, what does that mean? I understand. Like,
fine. It's saying I did steroids without saying I did steroids, which he refuses to say, which is disastrous in this whole thing.
He made mistakes.
Yeah.
We're getting
mistakes were made. Um, there were times I did whatever I could to recover from injuries, including in.
Mm.
Oh, oh wait, there's special ink underneath here, including inject my body with steroids in an
Yeah,
effort
he's
to keep my strength up to perform over 162 games. I never broke my
that's that. Let's break it down right there. That's not.
accurate.
That's just excuses. I mean, that's excuses for why. I mean, that's fine. Sorry, I'll keep. Let's just keep going.
I never broke any laws, but in
Yes,
hindsight, I made mistakes and I apologize.
I love that actually. The never broken any laws, and that's kind of your point. And I've adopted your stance about steroids in general and the Hall of Fame specifically. Is like,
Yes.
well, those guys weren't actually cheating when it comes down to it because there's no fucking rule against steroids at the time because Bud Selig was such a pansy
Yeah.
and never actually wrote the rule until 2005. It finally went in effect.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. And I've said it on this podcast before. 1998 rejuvenated and kind of saved baseball. It's thanks to steroids.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
baseball owes a lot to
It got me
not
back into
having a rule.
baseball.
Yeah.
This is part why I'm pissed off because I was a baseball fan when I was a kid. Up through the late '80s. The Tigers were '84 champs. They were in the playoffs in '87. I went to college in the early '90s, and I kind of lost track of baseball because there was a lot of other much more fun shit going on all throughout my '90s and college years. Um, I moved to Chicago in '97. Went to a Cubs game within 2 months of living in Chicago. They were awful. I think it was against the Twins, one of the first interleague games. But '98 changed everything. I mean, if you lived through '98, especially in Chicago or in St. Louis or anywhere of a certain age, you'd understand. It was the biggest story in sports all summer long, the
Yeah.
home run race. So, and then of course to find out that was all fraudulent and it's frustrating. It was, but that we had that fun. I had fun. You were a Big Mac fan, so you probably enjoyed that half of it at least
I was at one
more
of
than the
those.
Sosa part.
Yeah, I was at one of those games in Wrigley. During the when they were in the 60s.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And my dad hated the Cubs, which is where
Yeah,
my
oh yeah.
where my hatred for the Cubs comes
I would
from.
say
He
there's some
n-
shaping there.
he never wanted to go to Wrigley, yet we went to Wrigley twice that summer because of that. And
Yeah,
if that does not sum that up
yeah.
in it sums it all up to me right there. My
That
dad would
says it
not
all.
step foot. He stepped foot in that park for the first time in his what was he like? Let's see.
It'd
He was in
be
his like early 60s, like late 50s, early 60s. First time he stepped in that park was for this home run race.
yeah,
So there you go.
yeah. And then just to find out what we all learned. So there's a sense of betrayal. Again, uh, there's ambivalence on my part and yours, where it's phony, but there was no rule against it. So technically, he was not cheating. The interesting thing, though, he specifically said he never broke any laws. And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't steroids illegal in the country, even though they're not illegal? They weren't like ruled against in Major League Baseball. It's still an illegal. I don't know if it's a narcotic is the right term or what that is, but it's not. It was not a legal drug to have
Yeah, it's
whatever he
not
was using. So
yeah, you need to have a prescription for it. It needs to be steroids are legal if prescribed by a doctor, but these were just
well, I don't think
illegal.
it's. I guess we can parse that, but
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, for medical reasons, not
it's
for enhancing your body.
it's
So,
just interesting that he said he never broke any laws, and I'm not
yeah,
sure that's even true. But if he had said I never broke any major league rules, well,
I
that's not even
agree.
true. That part would be true for the steroids because it wasn't a rule. But he did cork his fucking bat, which was
Mm,
another phony moment of his life. Who knows how long he was corking his bat in addition to doing all the steroids and everything else. So I feel like I've spent too much time talking about this asshole. But the last part of that sentence was I made
mistakes.
mistakes and
And I
I apologize. So that's the only difference from his public stance from March. He just never, he said he made mistakes back in March when he was here, but he just never said what they were. He still isn't saying what they were, but he added the term apologize. So whatever that means. Is there anything interesting in the rest of what he
No,
said?
it's more about how great he was. Uh, he worked really hard in the. I'm going to summarize. He worked really hard in the batting cage to become a great hitter.
Yeah, I
Cubs
am
fans are the
great.
best fans in the world.
Yeah,
I hope
thank
we
you.
can move together. Move. I hope we can come together again and move forward. We can't change the past. I'll read the last sentence. We can't change the past, but the future is bright. In my heart, I've always been a Cub, and I can't wait to see Cub fans again.
Thanks, Sammy.
All right.
My whole stance is I'd rather never hear his name or see him ever again. I was just hoping he would go away. It's just such a tedious topic, and now we're doing a fucking emergency podcast about him. We're going to talk about him when he's at CubsCon shortly because that's what this is all about.
It's a Cubs con, all right.
Yeah, that's why I love it's no longer they subtly changed the name of Cubs convention to CubsCon, which I joyously approve of. So I it's just frustrating. It's such a non it just should be such a non-story. Um I just we've gone over the laundry list of my problems and most people's problems with Sammy.
Yeah,
Abandoning his teammates at the end of 2004. The boombox that everyone hated. His teammates hated him. He left a game early.
yeah,
My favorite part, and I've said this many, so my favorite part, maybe in Cubs history, is the Cubs release after Sammy denied that he left game 162 early, which I was attending actually. He left in the fourth inning. He denied that, to which the Cubs released timestamp video footage of him in the parking lot, proving that he did leave the game so that they would go to such lengths to prove him a liar. It just
right.
tells you what a piece of shit he was. How anyone he was around at the time thought he was an asshole. So it's not just me. I am an asshole, but there's lots of empirical evidence to prove he is an asshole. So you've got along those same asshole lines, you've got a statement from Tom Ricketts there
Yes.
replying to this. So
Yeah. Much shorter. Two paragraphs or four sentences. Um, we appreciate Sammy releasing a statement and for reaching out. No one played harder or wanted to win more. Nobody's perfect, but we never doubted his passion for the game and the Cubs.
okay. So it's been it's been announced subsequently that he will be they've accepted him back into the fold and he will
Yes,
be attending
that's the second part of
CubsCon.
this.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that still in the
Yeah,
statement?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. It is an understatement to say that Sammy is a fan favorite. We plan on inviting him to the
There we
2025
go.
Cubs convention, and while it is short notice, we hope he can attend. Even though he probably was told about it weeks ago, we already ready to move forward together. So
Well, I mean, in simplest terms, they're going to sell CubsCon out, even though it wasn't, probably was already, but it's going to be the biggest story in Chicago throughout the winter. They're going to make tons of money on autographs and appearances and everything like that. So it's kind of funny that they played out this drama for all these years where they could have been profiting off of each other and just now finally figured it out because of one word, apologize.
yeah,
So it's just the whole vitriol, the hard stance by Tom Ricketts, it just felt phony to me as well. I clearly have my problems with Tom Ricketts as well, but the whole thing just seemed like stupid melodrama.
yeah.
It didn't make any sense, and now it's like come to a dramatic conclusion where everyone can jizz all over each other and make more money. So, congratulations to Tom and Sammy. You finally figured out how to profit ultimately off of this, and unfortunately, we're going to have to continue hearing about it.
I mean, the good news for Sammy with the jizz is you won't even be able to see it on his skin.
Oh man. Yeah, that's oh boy. This is the next big question is what shade of Sammy Sosa will we receive at CubsCon
I mean, with
this
the amount,
winter?
yeah, with the amount of coverage Marquee Network was giving this, I would say I thought he was back to looking normal because that's the kind of that would deserve the all
Yeah.
afternoon coverage.
50 Shades of Sosa.
That's what his appearance is called at the
That
Cubs
might
God.
yeah. Oh boy. So, I don't know. That's about all I've got to say about it unless you had any other
No, no,
fast
I'm
breaking
good.
thoughts.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, if we can move on to the regularly scheduled portion of this podcast, I'd like to move on to some really good news for my Chicago Cubs as Jed Hoyer finally put on his big boy pants and made a bold ass move, which he has been the most risk averse general manager I think I've ever come across, paying attention to baseball for 30 plus years. Uh, Trading for Kyle Tucker, arguably a top 5 offensive player in all of baseball. He is one of 4 players to have hit 100 home runs and gotten 80 steals since 2021. There's only 4 of them. One of them's Kyle Tucker. The other is Shohei Ohtani, Jose Ramirez, and Francisco Lindor.
It's good company.
Kyle Tucker had a 4.7 WAR last year, which might sound it's good no matter what, but it might sound a little bit low. But you also have to remember he only played 78 games last year because he broke his shin on a foul tip. Fortunately, a broken leg is not a sign of chronic injury, or he's been able to recover from that, and I'm not fearful for this coming season. It is only for this one season because he does become a free agent after the 2025 season. The Cubs gave up a sizable package, and this is where Jed put on his big boy pants and actually made a move that radically changes the Cubs offense. Traded away Isaac Paredes, who was a former Tiger and now former Cub. Um, Kind of a mixed bag. He was not great with the Cubs by any means. He was not great with the Tigers either, but he was really good with the Rays. So
So good.
I kind of don't understand like what's going on. Maybe it's my fault. The two favorite.
I agree.
I blame myself for Isaac Paredes' poor performance everywhere but Tampa. That's a piece. I mean, he certainly didn't work out in Chicago, but that's a significant piece. But Hayden Wesneski, referred to at times as Wesnasty, but not in a long time because he's been pretty mediocre out of the bullpen. That we can afford to lose. The big piece going forward is Cam
Yeah.
Smith, the number 1 pick, Cubs number 1 pick in 2024.
Yeah.
Uh, their number 7 overall prospect and a top 100 in all of baseball. That's the pricey part, which I would be easy to get rid of if you had Kyle Tucker for multiple years, but just for 1 year, a 1 year rental essentially, that's a hefty price. But surprisingly, Jed Hoyer was willing to pay it, which I did not know was in his nature. We talked about a little bit. Well, we definitely did a segment on it last episode because the rumors were right there. And 24 hours later, of course, he pulls the trigger and makes the move. So we have to come back now a week later and talk about it. I'm impressed. That's as big a move as Jed's ever done, as I stated before. It radically changes the Cubs' offense. It's something you heard about, but it's like, how is this going to happen? And I just didn't see Jed actually doing enough to get it to come together. So I got to give him an A for that trade. It's the best Cubs trade in a long time. I probably need to think back a little more to quantify it in Cubs history, but to get a top 5 player in the game right now,
Yeah.
you could argue he's on par with Juan Soto, considering his full game with the power, the speed, and the defense. He's a Gold Glove defender in right field. So I'm impressed. Bravo! I've been shitting all over Jed Hoyer for a couple of years now, and this is something I really need to give him credit for, and it gives me a renewed optimism about the Cubs going into 2025. I've been complaining for 2 years. They keep sending a mediocre 500 team, hoping they could catch lightning in a bottle and win 10 more games than they're projected to, and maybe make the playoffs in a pretty mediocre National League Central. Well, now they made themselves the favorite by far, I would say, and it's just it's a different feeling. I wasn't prepared to have 1 week ago even. So I don't know. Did you have thoughts about Kyle Tucker specifically or Jed
Yeah.
Hoyer?
Yeah. And I think I agree with everything you said. The one thing I'll just push back on a little is you did say it, so I don't know if it's an
I said a
A.
lot of things. Sorry.
No, I know, no. You brought it up about giving up the number, 2024 number 1 draft pick, top
Mm,
7, top 100 player for someone who essentially is a rental player. Now, if they can somehow sign him, to me, then it was totally worth it.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've heard talk about that they could just extend him, which now they have a whole year to do it. Exclusive negotiating rights.
Right.
Um, I the issue is we've seen Jed Hoyer a complete role reversal. He actually was made a bold move for the first time. In order for them to extend Kyle Tucker, Tom Ricketts is going to have to also make a complete metamorphosis into something he has not been doing for
Right.
years now. Will he open the pocketbooks? Because we've seen these record contracts. We just did a whole segment last week on Juan Soto's ridiculous $760 million deal. Well, Kyle Tucker is not going to get that necessarily because he doesn't have the same age profile going forward that leads to that. Or uh, Steve Cohen and the Steinbrenner family having a dick measuring contest to see who could land the biggest prospect. That's not going to be the case for Kyle Tucker, but he is still going to command 400 million.
Yeah,
Uh,
400, 500 million, I'm
I
sure.
don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Um, uh, do you see Tom Ricketts signing off on that a $400 million deal?
No, and that's why I think it's I get your reasoning for, and this is just one opinion versus another, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the
That's
day.
it's called a
But
podcast.
yeah,
This
but
is meaningless.
like an I give it like a B
Okay.
because of just because of the reality is they gave up all of that for 1 year, and
Mm-hmm.
then what you're going to talk about next
Yes.
is made me believe like maybe they are going to try to extend Tucker because they've freed up a bunch of money. But if they don't, then we never get to see maybe Cody Bellinger with Kyle Tucker batting behind him is a completely different scenario that
Yeah.
really pushes
Exactly.
the Cubs into a runaway with the fucking division offensively. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
And this you are transitioning perfectly in the second part of this. The duality that is the 2025 Chicago Cubs, and certainly with Jed Hoyer's behavior, because I mean, instantly adding Kyle Tucker makes the Cubs a much better team. Trading Cody Bellinger for, we heard this was happening, but potentially happening, but for trading Cody Bellinger for Cody Poteet from the New York Yankees,
Who?
which if I mean, you and I are kind of clued in, especially in the American League, because we do our American League assholes fantasy league
He
AL
wasn't on the
only.
roster.
I don't remember seeing Cody Poteet come up in any of my free agent searches at any point. So
Ugh.
not only that, but that they all the Cubs also sent $5 million to the
Yes.
Yankees. So they are paying the Yankees to take Cody Bellinger off of our payroll, in the most blatant salary dump since Yu Darvish. I mean, it's the same idea, um, and the same similarly offensive, because how on earth does that trade make losing Cody Bellinger and paying to take him off your books? How does that make the Cubs better?
It
And
doesn't.
on the surface, it does not. Today, it does not. But as you mentioned, if that money that they saved by hurting themselves somehow leads to signing Kyle Tucker, which do you believe that that's really going to be part of it and a reality? I
Mm,
don't.
yeah.
Um,
Or at
I
least
guess.
like a legitimate offensive threat to go along with them. Because again, like in my head, when they signed Tucker, first thing I went to was Cody Bellinger is going to have a bounce back year because he has protection. And Kyle Tucker doesn't need the protection because he's just that well rounded of a player. So Bellinger might hit 30 home runs this year.
Hmm.
And then what, 3 days, 2 days later, the dream was over?
Well,
I
I
mean,
think I think maybe the thought process is you can transfer that protection over to, say, a Suzuki.
eh,
Um, but yeah, exactly. That's where neither here nor there on that. I almost have to give him an incomplete until we find out where that money's going to be spent.
yeah,
And but I also am going to give him an F for this trade, because having to ask that question pisses me off, because the Cubs don't have to sell anybody to have the money to sign Kyle Tucker or to
right.
add to this roster any way they want. They're just choosing not to spend over around $240 million, which happens to be the competitive balance tax limit. So it's just eternally frustrating that money would ever become an issue with making this roster better. And trading away Cody Bellinger does not make this roster better. It saves money that can be moved around in different ways. So it's just frustrating. In like a 24-hour span, you thought the Cubs were finally acting like the big market behemoth that they are, with their own television network, owning their own stadium, owning all of the lucrative, most valuable land in the Midwest, owning all of that around the stadium, and yet somehow still at the same time acting like a middle or low or small market team. It's just confounding and frustrating forever.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think before we probably move off of Cody Bellinger, we got to talk about the bizarre love triangle, right?
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Thanks. This is why I need a good partner like you, and that's why I write a bunch of notes that I need to look at. I did almost forget to talk about the interesting conundrum that has now been created in New York now that Cody Bellinger has been traded to the Yankees, as Cody Bellinger's wife, Chase Carter, I think is her name, which she is a model, of course, as most millionaires are able to afford a supermodel wife, happens to be the ex girlfriend of Yankees Giancarlo Stanton. And I'm wondering what kind of awkward scenarios that leads to, depending on I know nothing about these relationships. I think Cody and his wife have kids now, so I think they've been a couple for quite some time. I don't know when Giancarlo Stanton and she were going out. Maybe he was Mike Stanton back then, for all I know. And maybe they broke up on really good terms. I have no idea, but it just leads to an interesting I don't know, soap opera that I'm sure the New York media is going to have fun with. We'll see how that plays out, but I don't know if you had thoughts on that meaningless subject.
Uh, no, I mean, I laughed out loud when I saw it come up in my social media. I was like, "Wow, that's interesting." But like you said, Smitty, like I'm with you. I have no idea the context of it all. It could be perfectly fine and meaningless, but eh, it's fun to speculate how things could get interesting in the clubhouse. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like a
maybe.
I like a little issues in the Yankees clubhouse. I'm fine with that. I'm
Yeah, I'm fine
okay.
with that too. Yeah, if we can create some consternation or
Yeah, some
some
animosity
unnecessary.
with among
Yeah.
players. Let's do it.
Fun times. So yeah,
Yes.
definitely something that assholes like you and us should be talking about. And it was not a secret on the internet. It's been all over the place now. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be fun to pay attention to going forward.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be a podcast without a little bit of White Sox talk because,
Yeah, I've got
God,
no Tigers. I don't think we have any Giants or
no.
A's news. So let's finish this up with the eternally entertaining Chicago White Sox.
Well, in breaking news, the Sox have a new stadium name. That's right. Not a new
Name.
stadium, just a new stadium
Oh,
name. And
damn.
interestingly enough, it's the new name of the stadium is really the nickname of the stadium that was brought upon by Chicago radio and fans. Guaranteed Rate Field to all of us became Let's Go to the Rate. Everyone kind of liked Let's Go to the Rate. It sounded way better than Guaranteed Rate Field.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
great. I mean, that's choosing between two height contests between two midgets, I guess, but or
yeah,
however that phrase goes. But
that's
the rate
offensive,
was definitely
Smitty.
better than than saying guaranteed rate field.
Yes.
It's only marginally better now. It might be even weirder though, now that it's officially called Rate Field, which I thought was that's even more awkward in a way. Like guaranteed rate, I guess people knew what that was called. It's a Chicago company. Our buddy Joe actually works there for guaranteed rate, but they changed their name to Rate this past year, and that story is actually a little bit interesting. They rebranded this past season, maybe coincidentally, or maybe because of a rather newsworthy sexual harassment scandal involving a lot of the top level management at Guaranteed Rate. That was a big story this summer. I don't know how big it was, but it was definitely publicized. So I don't know if they changed their name to kind of subliminally trick people. And it's like, oh no, that was those guys over there. We're now just rate or whatever they're called. So I don't know. It's just another layer to it. Of course, their logo is still an downward pointing arrow, which is very unfortunate.
Well,
But
but accurate.
also, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Unfortunate yet accurate depiction of what has happened to the White Sox fortune since they signed the deal with guaranteed rate. Uh, yeah, rate field. Just,
Yeah.
of course. Go ahead.
Well, no, I had a weird theory. Like, do you think Garrett? Honestly, the truth is what you just said. That's why I'm sure that's why they changed their name. But a little more fun. Do you think? I was like, did Chicago sports radio and White Sox fans push this organization into a name change because it sounded so much better? But then they took the off and ruined it. But
Huh?
was it pressure? Was it this unforeseen pressure from all of White Sox Nation and Chicago Sports Radio that had a whole company change their name, not because of sexual harassment lawsuits,
Yeah.
but because of the power of the people?
Well, my only response to that is nothing in life is guaranteed.
Boo. If only we had the buzzer from the dryer right now.
Well, that got me to thinking like we've basically abandoned calling Sox Park anything it's been called officially for 30 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, so I thought maybe we should rank either the nicknames or combine that with the nicknames and the official names of Sox Park since its debut in 1991. Um, I put my list together. I just put the nicknames down. I just did it there. I just call it Sox Park. I've called it forever. I just call it Sox Park. Everyone knows what you're talking about. I don't know if I picked that up from you or if that's what Sox fans have always called it, or just it just makes sense to me. Just Sox Park. It sounds it's easy to say. It just makes sense. There's no
I have
ambiguity.
Yeah, I have to look at it, Smitty, but I actually think my opening day ticket in that game against the Tigers that I have in like this commemorative little stand they gave
Yeah, yeah.
us, I think it says Sox Park on it.
It was not called New Comiskey at that point or anything like
No,
that.
no, no, that was always like a fan thing. I
Well,
always felt like,
that's actually on my list here of it's down the list a little bit, but that's one of my favorite nicknames of the new Comiskey Park. I thought the second best name was just combining the first sponsor, US Cellular, uh, Comiscular. I thought it was a really clever way to like kind of sum up how ridiculous corporate sponsorships are, but it
yeah.
kind of still make an homage to the history of the White Sox. US Cellular, is that even around it? Can you buy a US
I don't,
Cellular service
I'm
or
not,
phone?
I have no idea. I don't think I've seen a US Cellular advertisement in
I,
forever.
they may have just gone bankrupt, and that's why Sox had to find a new partner, eventually guaranteed rate, eventually rate. Um, US Cellular, it made sense. I think it was a Midwest company. I'm not sure if it was founded in Chicago. It was either Chicago or Iowa, or it was definitely Midwest. So
Their corporate offices were in that like business center right in Rosemont, like off the
okay, so
highway there. So
yeah,
yeah.
so it's a Chicago company. That made sense. But US Cellular, US Cellular Field. I mean that's it's not the worst corporate sponsor. It was fine. It's actually not much different than Wrigley Field if you think about it. I mean, it's a
Right.
chewing gum with
Right.
field after it. So that wasn't the worst, but certainly not as bad as guaranteed rate or rate. Third on my list, and maybe I should have made this number two, is the cell.
The
Still
cell was
based.
great.
I mean, it's a cool thing. It makes you think of cell block four, a prison sentence. There's some activities there that definitely led to people going to prison. Uh,
Yes.
it kind of fit the moment in the 2000s and 2010s. The cell was just it just kind of summed it up pretty perfectly, and it kind of mocked US Cellular at the same time, but the cell just made sense. New Comiskey, did you ever call the
No.
news? That's one thing I heard for a while, and I think that went away pretty quick, probably as soon as US Cellular started. I forget what year they actually started, but I mean, you're probably there probably had to be names for it, like you said, maybe Sox Park, like on that ticket you had. That would make sense if they just abandoned the name Comiskey altogether at that point. So there's no ambiguity. It's just Sox Park versus the old Comiskey.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the day that the wrecking ball hit Comiskey Park was done. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, it's not. If it was called Sox Park, then fine, call it Sox Park again. That's fine. But that was a shitty owner. The park was named
yeah.
after,
That's the
and
thing.
and and
People,
and and the way that people like, I still call it Comiskey T-shirts and that. Why? He
yeah,
sucked.
he was a dirtbag,
Yeah,
and
it'd be like having Reinsdorf Park. Would anyone support Reinsdorf Park? No fucking way.
That's a great point. Yeah, people want to pay homage to history, even though they don't know the history potentially or know the connotations of. But they just like to hold on to retro shit for the sake of it, but not
Yeah,
realizing potentially that Comiskey was a piece of shit. He wouldn't pay his players. I mean, that led
yeah,
to the whole Black Sox scandal.
yeah.
So
I mean,
why continue to honor that douchebag?
yeah, I mean, if you want to name it appropriately, just name it the '05 White Sox Park or Canerco Stadium or like one of those. I mean, that would be at least enduring to some degree. You know what I mean? But and I'm joking because I that none of that is good. But
Yes.
like at least it would make more sense for people to be so upset because they didn't rename it Comiskey. Like when Jerry dies, if they actually were to name this place Reinsdorf Park, their probably attendance would drop even further.
You know what they're gonna do is they're gonna sell it to some other mediocre company, may or may not be headquartered in Chicago. That'll be the name of the field or the name of the stadium, but it's gonna be Reinsdorf Field, as we've seen,
Mm,
as we've seen multiple sponsorship deals with.
yes.
Actually, that's happened involving my local Lansing Lugnuts. We had a name for the Cooley Law School Stadium, which is a ridiculous name, but the field was sponsored by Jackson Life Insurance. So we made like $10 million off of that somehow. So that would not surprise me if somehow Jerry Reinsdorf's name is it's going to be involved somewhere here or there. So we'll have to prepare ourselves for that.
I think we should just understand that a statue will be erected.
Oh yeah,
Doesn't matter. At least some
gotta
sort of
be.
memorial. He did bring us one championship.
He did. You remember it. I remember it. You can't take that away from him. So
No. ESPN may be able to, but no one else can.
now, yeah, ESPN consistently removes that championship
Yeah,
somehow. But
they hate it.
I put the rate as my least favorite nickname. We talked about it already,
Yeah.
but I probably should have put New Comiskey as my least favorite since it was not even right. But
Yeah, I like the wasn't it Lawrence Holmes who came up with the rate? I feel
maybe
like it was.
he's come
Like,
up with lots of good things over the years. I was
yeah.
just listening to him this afternoon, actually.
Yeah, I think he was like the rate. Doesn't that sound better? And it's like, yeah, it does sound a lot
It
fucking
sounds
better.
better, but it still makes no sense. Where the cell actually had double connotations, which made really good sense.
Yes.
So
Yes. So the
I don't know.
rate
You
is
probably
bad.
yes.
Um, in other news, something it's back. We talked about it, God, like probably like freaking 10 episodes ago in this middle of summer. SoxFest is back, but it's not SoxFest anymore. It's SoxFest Live.
Wow. Hey, let's back up though. SoxFest has been gone for 4 years now.
Yeah, pretty much
Uh,
Kenny and Rick went into hiding.
yeah, it was canceled, of course, as all fan festivals were in after the pandemic. So it was canceled in 2021. Somehow the Sox have now deemed that it is now safe to congregate again in the winter.
Ooh, they
Uh,
may not be after I and
3 years after the rest of the world decided COVID was over. The Sox have finally joined the party, so to speak. So, but it sounds like you got some interesting comments about this. I'm dying to hear it, but I thought to frame this all, it might make sense as Festivus is much just 4 days away, only one shopping day until Festivus. So,
oh my God.
should this segment be called Sox Festivus?
Yeah, I think it should be because one, I'd like to restate, because I've said it before, I've never gone to Sox Fest. And
I'm surprised
toying
by that.
I was toying with the idea of like maybe Charlie and I. And Margot would probably want to go just because we were going. But like,
Yeah,
let me take the kids to Sox Fest. Let's go to Sox Fest because I, if you remember, or you may not remember, but let me refresh your memory. Sox Fest Live was scheduled as also an honoring the '05 White Sox, and there were supposed to be all of these '05 players coming out as like a almost like Sammy Sosa showing up to Cubs Con, same
yeah.
type
This
of
would be
idea.
the 20
This
year anniversary. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And like all the players were supposed to show up and it was supposed to be this '05 thing. Well, I'm going to run through the list of scheduled appearances. And I know you're not a White Sox fan, but just
I am not.
play along. And you're a White Sox fan for this segment. For
I'll
this
try.
segment,
Ugh.
you are a White Sox fan.
Ugh.
I know. Don't burn.
Ugh.
He's burning, folks.
Ah!
He's on fire.
Unclean, unclean.
Um, and I'm going to read you the list of scheduled appearances. And let me ask you if you want to come. It's January 24th and 25th from 5 to 9.
I could
So
jump on the train, get down there.
you don't have to invest a lot of time into it. It's not like an all day thing.
Okay.
Okay, scheduled appearances. Players: Sean Burke. Who? Jonathan Cat. Jonathan Cannon. Who?
I think I know that name. Is he a starting pitcher right now for you guys?
Maybe. Corey
Okay.
Lee, catcher. We know Corey
Catcher.
Lee.
Yes.
Brian Ramos, I believe he's a reliever.
Hmm.
Uh, Drew Thorpe, who's one of our
Yes.
higher rated pitching prospects. Miguel Vargas.
Just
Why?
traded. Yeah, just traded for this year. That's had a terrible time in Chicago so far.
Yeah. And Andrew Vaughn. Those are the scheduled player appearances.
What happened to the '05 Sox?
Front office, Chris Getz and Will Venable. Now, to me, that'd be worth going to. That part as
Yeah.
just to watch the chaos unfold. See if people are escorted out or what's going on. And then one final list of scheduled appearances, and I'm gonna pull back the curtain. There's not one mention of any former players from the '05 White Sox on this list.
What the fuck?
Prospects: Chase Meardroth, Brandon Montgomery, Colson Montgomery, Edward Cuero, Noah Schultz, Sagan Smith, Kyle Teal, and George Wolkow. So at least all of the big name prospects they just got in trades and Colson
Yeah.
Montgomery, those guys are going to be there. So
Or they've been there for like 1 week.
yeah,
Now they're gonna be there.
it's that part is probably the more exciting part of it. But at the same time, it's probably going to be like 5 degrees outside the end of January in Chicago. You want me to come out at night from 5 to 9 to what? I don't even know what. I didn't. I heard there's live music too. They didn't have any of that in here. But like, I just don't understand what they're doing. Like maybe there's an announcement coming that there's going to be a special '05 thing when they realize they've only sold 15 tickets to this fucking thing.
Mm.
But like right now, it is just an epic failure as far as I'm concerned when I look at this what they're doing.
Was there any explanation how like the original plans of the '05 team or an '05
No,
celebration just
it's
got
just
nixed
it's
or
never been mentioned.
never materialized? It
It's
just
just
didn't
nothing's been
happen.
mentioned
They
again about it. Like it's just like it never was mentioned.
Wow. Well, and it
Like
also makes logical sense. 20 years, 20-year anniversary. Or maybe they're going to celebrate it next year because it's actually 20 years from that moment. I don't know. Like what
I don't
that's just
know.
seems odd.
All I gotta say is this just another part of the failure of this organization so far. Like again, maybe there's an
Mm.
announcement coming and I'll say, okay, my bad. But these are the scheduled appearances that I'm is the reason I'm supposed to buy a 2 day pass. The other thing is it doesn't tell me who's gonna be who on what day. So even if they did, I think I don't know if you're forced to buy a 2 day pass because I didn't look into it because I'm not going. But
Right.
it's like, I don't know. It's just sucks. White sucks.
Yikes.
Yeah. So,
White sucks. I've made
yeah,
that graphic a few times.
I know. And it's never been more fitting.
Well, maybe they will surprise you with a Festivus miracle, Sox Festivus miracle, and announce that the 2005 White Sox will indeed be represented by some players that you would actually like to see
I might
at this
go then.
live event.
I might go because I think
Yeah.
Charlie would want to go and see like Konerko and Brzezinski and those guys. So
I
that
mean,
could get me out.
if you force me to put on a White Sox fan hat, but uh I would be totally for that. That would be the coolest way to reinvigorate SoxFest in general. Like it's been gone, it's now back. You couldn't come back in a bigger way than
Right.
having those boys there. Like that would be fucking rad, considering how what a negative feeling there is around the team in general, how it's spiraling downward. What better way could they possibly come up with than to kind of reintroduce Soxfest and kind of reinvigorate the franchise potential by bringing back those legends, the last great, truly great memories that any Sox fan has. So, wow, that is missing a giant opportunity.
Yeah. That's all I got.
All right.
Annoyed with the White Sox as always.
No, you were able to air your grievances. I hope that makes you feel better in this Festivus season.
As
Uh,
always, it does.
there will be no feats of strength, fortunately. But I want to wish everyone a happy Festivus, happy holiday season to all as we wrap up this. I can't decide if I'm going to call this episode 155.5 or 156 now. Is this an official episode?
I think
I
it
think it
is.
is.
I think we've gone about 45 minutes of
45 minutes. That's
actual
a typical.
content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's most podcasts. We go
That's
way longer than that.
our shorter side of podcasts, but
We
still,
make these way too long. Maybe we should continue to do these short ones. This is
yeah.
pretty good. I like it. Well, with that, we will wrap this one up. In the meantime, happy holidays to all. You can find us on social media at Major League A-Holes and at Sox Type Thing. You can find us on the web at majorleagueaholes.com and our merchandise at aesthetics.shop, ASSTHETICS.shop. You can find us on YouTube. We are currently at 291 subscribers.
Come on, people.
Yeah, let's have a Festivus miracle and get up to 300 before the new year. I think that'd be great. I don't know what that does for us, but it seems like a cool round number. I'm amazed that 291 people want to subscribe to us to begin with. So if that many have joined in, we could get 9 more and be even more surprised. So I think that would be a cool gift to us. So with that, I'm going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace on earth and to all a good night.
How'd you do that?
Word Hole Media.